Hi there, welcome to the RevOps show. Today is a special episode and an even more exciting day. After what feels like a lifetime, Doug's book, The Revenue Acceleration Framework, is out for you to purchase. I can't believe I'm saying those words right now. It has been a long time coming. I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes of the work Doug has put into this book. It is a great read, so great that Doug and Jess had to dive into it today. So listen in to get some behind the scenes information on the book and how it came to be, along with sneak peeks into some of the stories that are in the book. I don't want to spoil anything, so I hope you are as excited as we are, and let's just jump into it.
Hi, Doug.
Yes. Jess, I forgot. How are you doing this morning, Jess?
I'm great.
Friday morning?
You know, I'm going to learn my lesson one of these days.
Friday morning, starting off with the RevOps show. Hey, Jess, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do I have the Macarena going through my head right now?
Doug, okay, so I can't answer why you have anything going through your head at any given moment. That's not something I want to try to decode.
I really don't I don't understand. I don't want it to be going through my head. I don't like it. I've never liked it. I actually broke the record when I used to DJ and people would request it. Although, you know what my favorite thing to do with that song was when I was DJing?
What?
I'd mess with the pitch control.
God.
I had people running into each other. It was so entertaining.
Who let you DJ? That's the real question. Just chaos ensued.
I was a good DJ, Jess.
I'm sure you were, Doug.
I was a good DJ. I should go back. I should get back to it.
Should you? Should you?
No.
I was gonna say.
I really probably shouldn't.
I was gonna say it would like what would your set list be? Like, do you even?
You know, it's so much easier today. You just have to I could just ask ChatGPT.
That's true. It's fair.
Speaking of which, did you see the demo of this new ChatGPT voice?
No.
Oh my God. It is both amazing and frightening.
Oh, really?
I mean, I literally had shivers and amazement going through as I was watching this. The thing that was most impressive was that part of the demo was two people talking, one person in English, one person in Italian, and live with no delay, it was translating for each. It was
it's interesting.
It was insane. Insane, Jess, insane. What are we talking about today, Jess? What are we talking about?
So I hear there's big news, Doug. There's big news. Maybe not today.
Oh, but I know what the big news is.
What?
We're going to be in the same place next week.
We are going to be in the same place next week. That's not the news.
Actually, we're going to be in the same place today when this airs.
We are.
Although I don't know. What?
Are we going to be in the same place today or are we going to be in the same place tomorrow?
No, today.
Okay.
Technically. Well, depending upon, I guess that depends upon what time zone.
Yeah, that's true. And in Earth time, we will not be. In Eastern time, we will not be.
Because you get in, what, at 10?
I think I get in at 11.
11?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
It's 11 Mountain Time.
Yep.
We don't want to tell people where we are because they might.
Yeah, I know. Right. Exactly. 100%.
It's kind of like if they know the location of my private jet.
Jesus.
Although actually, I would like it if someone knew the location of my private jet. You know why?
Why?
Because I don't know where the location of my private jet is.
Oh, okay.
So if someone else knew it, they could tell me, and I could go get my private jet.
That is not the news I was referring to.
That's not the news you're referring to.
No. What's the news, Doug?
Is this the news you're referring to?
That is the news. Look at that. Look at that.
Out today.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. Look at this. I mean, tell me that is not a face made for radio.
Oh my goodness. Are you excited?
241 pages of just pure joy and insight.
Pure joy and insight.
Have you looked at the book at all, Jess?
I have looked at the book.
Have you looked at page 239?
I have not looked at page 239.
You should look at page 239.
This is great podcasting right now.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm in the book? I'm in the book?
You made the book, Jess.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that part. I just learned that live here. I'm a little bit speechless.
Yes, Jess, the book is out. The Revenue Acceleration Framework. You know what? There's a typo. It says a proven roadmap. It's the proven roadmap.
There's a typo on the cover.
It's not really a typo.
No, I know.
Proven roadmap to transform and dynamically grow your business. Yeah, it's out. I mean, it only took, like 17 years?
Oh, my God. I mean, I know you haven't been writing this book the whole time that I've been here, but it feels like it.
You know what's interesting? I've been going through some old stuff, and it is like I'm actually surprised by how much stuff that we talked about. I mean, before I knew you, going back to stuff that we were doing in 2009.
Yeah,
that is still like right on. As a matter of fact, what we're going to be doing in a couple of days from the posting of this, not the recording of this,
right?
I feel like I'm in a time loop, Jess.
The future is here. The future is now.
Is the same graphic that I was using in 2007.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. Yeah.
17 years and we haven't made a shit spit of difference.
Oh, wow. Wow. I don't know that I would put it that way, but thanks.
That's my nihilism.
Yeah, that's true. So Doug, why did you write a book?
Why did I write a book?
Yeah, why'd you write a book?
You know, actually, it's really interesting because I was thinking about what's my next book, and you said something the other day. You said something when on a podcast a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You've been writing this book since I've been here, and there was another book that got like probably, it got written, but it never got it. It only started at the editing process, and then it just kind of fell. So I was thinking like, okay, what's my next book? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't published a book. I mean, I've self-published some books in the past, but I haven't done anything specifically. Like, once blogging became a real core thing. But the thing that's interesting is I've always been writing a book. And I think that's why you feel like, so why did I write a book? Because I'm kind of like always writing a book. Because, there's something about this, Jess. Like, it's all there. It's all in one place. You can't change it. Like, you cannot edit this.
I mean, now you can't edit it. Yes.
Right. But,
right.
No, I mean, I could edit the next version that gets printed.
Right.
But there is something that's interesting about. So why did I write a book? It's kind of the way that I bring my thinking together, I think. And then there's also, it's a binary thing, right? You have a book, you don't have a book. Did you write a book? You didn't write a book. So we can now literally say I wrote the book on RevOps.
Yes, it's true.
Because the other reason I wrote a book is because of my humility.
It's my favorite part of you, your humility. So why did you write this book?
There's two reasons why I wrote this book. And actually, when I was talking with Brian Halligan, and I had just started writing it, he said, "Why are you writing a book?" I said, "Writing a book's really hard."
Yeah.
And I had to think about why I was like, when I made the commitment to do it. And by the way, what's interesting is if I had not made the commitment at the time that I made the commitment as firmly as I made it, I don't think I would have finished it. I think it would have gotten 85, 90%. I mean, there were a couple of times where I wasn't sure I was gonna. We've been talking about things. 2018, we were the first company in the world to start offering services under the banner of RevOps. there are so many things, and I really don't mean this to sound egotistical or arrogant. There are so many things that we've talked about, done, addressed, where we've been ahead of the curve. And ahead of the curve, not in the clearly there's a wave riding. We're ahead of the curve, like going against the tide, going against gravity. People go, oh no, you're just being, and one of the things, like I don't view myself as being somebody that, like, I people who don't know me say, oh, you should do a future trends piece. I'm like, I don't do that. I don't know. Like I can't do, I don't see some future trend. I just kind of see what I see. And I think the reason that, like, I'm willing to say something or entertain something before I think most people are.
Yep.
So I'm open to this shift that's happening, but all I'm doing, and this is going to sound really egotistical, all I'm doing is reporting on the truth, which is why other people find, like, so we have a unique point of view, but what's not unique about our point of view is it's based on reality, right? So if no one else, I mean, I like to say I invented inbound marketing.
You realize that statement's recorded now, right?
Yeah, I know. Right.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna expand on it. I didn't call it inbound marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I called it, like I still remember I was actually at a strategic coach workshop, and I was talking to Paul Hamilton. I was saying, Paul, here's the problem. The problem when you're selling is you're going from meeting somebody. Like, it was the problem. Like the problem with because squeeze pages were this big thing. I'm like, the problem is you're going from I've never met you to buy from me in one step. And I said, that's a really scary thing. I said, in between, like, I want to be able to raise my hand a little bit. And I want to be able to commit before I change. Like I want to be, and so I ended up creating this 5-step, from awareness to customer. And I've got all the content to prove it. And by the way, the content goes before HubSpot was founded, before the book Inbound Marketing was written. And it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. And yep. I do remember there was a little while that I was fighting the inbound marketing terminology because I wanted my terminology. Then I realized, HubSpot probably has a little bit more juice behind their terminology than I had. I had people that asked me how I contributed to the Challenger sale. And by the way, I have proof. Like I was talking about the provoke role and things like that before the book came out.
Mm-hmm.
So again, what I'm doing, like I actually find that to be highly validating, frustrating sometimes, but highly validating, because if other people aren't discovering the same thing I'm discovering, then is it really real? Right. So getting back to why I wrote this book, I remember saying to myself, okay, someone's going to write this book.
Yeah.
Right. Someone's going to write this. And the question is, will I be more upset about the stress and strain of writing the book, or not writing the book and having somebody write the book that I should have written? And so that's the reason that I committed to it.
Okay.
The second reason, in my answer to Brian Halligan, to close that loop, why you're writing the book.
Yep.
By the way, I'm not writing a book because I think the book's going to make me rich. I'm already rich, Jess. I get to do a podcast with you almost every week.
Oh, Lord.
I can't imagine anything that it's the best business card in the world. Yeah. And I mean, again, and what it does is it says here, it gets back to that. I mean, it's 241 pages, right?
Yeah.
Really probably closer to 230 when all the pages that they label and whatnot that aren't really pages. I wouldn't consider About the Author to be a page in the book.
No.
But it is page 241. But if you want to see Jess's name, page 239.
There we go.
It is there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It puts a full thought through, and so it's so that's why I wrote the book.
So
I just wanted people to like me.
I was actually gonna ask you why this book and why now, but you talked about why now. So why does the world need this book?
I'll answer why they need what's in the book.
Okay.
There's something wrong. There's something wrong in business.
Mm-hmm.
The volatility. I mean, bubbles used to be generational.
Mm-hmm.
We're now just going from one bubble to the next bubble to the next bubble. The trust, like, it's fascinating because we're in an environment, and the last 2 years, I mean, well, shit, the last 4 years from an economic standpoint have actually been remarkably good.
Right.
But the perception is opposite that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People are tired. To get really geeky, we talked about this before, but as we're moving from Gaussian distributions to Pareto distributions, what's happening is there's probably no time better to be a great individual contributor than ever before. Yep. There's probably no time worse than being a good one. Right? So, like, if I wanted to start something and I wanted to make a few $1 million as, a 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, like, the opportunity's never been better or easier. It's not easy, but easier than it is right now. Because the very, very, very best are getting disproportionately rewarded, and the average is disappearing. But what's missing about the average is the core. Mm-hmm. And so there's just so much, like, there's so much value extraction in the world today. That like that core element that I think makes business robust, what makes running a business, being an executive in a business rewarding. It's harder. And there, again, there's something that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And we're in a shift. We're in a paradigm shift. We're in one of the early books that I read on, I like to call it business philosophy, was Alvin Toffler's The Third Wave, where he talked about, we went from being a nomadic people to an agricultural people to an industrial people to a digital people. So from being nomadic to agricultural was a huge wave. The world changed. Mm-hmm. If you think about the invention of the printing press, had the same kind of impact. And if you look at what's happening underneath all of this, the through line is flow and access to information. That's what has fundamentally changed through each of these flows. And, and we're now in the generative AI. Yeah. Right. Where it used to be the flow of information, and now it's okay. Well, we're just going to make up the information. I don't mean that. I don't mean that just in the, we live in a post-factual society, but we do live in a post-factual society. Yeah. Yep. Right. I mean, we were talking about Chat GPT voice, and so here's, like, I was talking with Ash about this yesterday, and this is actually something that I'm going to look into doing. Mm-hmm. We take the book manuscript. Okay. We take the manuscript from every webinar that we want to take. We take the manuscript from all of our RevOps shows. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, I would say easily, we've got 1 million words here. Probably. Yeah. If not, at least several 100,000. Mm-hmm. We throw it into a large language model. Yeah. Are you ready for this? We create Doug GPT. I love that I'm learning about these things live on RevOps show. And then we don't need Doug anymore.
Because we have Doug
OpenAI.
GPT.
Well, there's one element, and so OpenAI has shared on their voice stuff, like they can get someone's voice with seconds of recording.
Oh, I'm sure.
So by the way, we can now have all of my thoughts and my voice. Like it won't be just you query. Like you could have a conversation with Doug GPT.
That's wild.
Right.
We don't need Doug anymore.
Now, you know what's missing in the equation?
What?
Insight.
Yeah.
So the problem with Doug GPT that makes Doug GPT not Doug is that if you ask Doug GPT a question, it will go out of its way to answer the question that you asked.
Right.
If you ask Doug, he will more likely
go out of his way to not answer the question that was asked.
He will more likely to not say, well, that's not really the right question.
No, yeah.
So we'll have to train Doug GPT to say, well, that's not really the right question. But so that is, on one hand, that is exciting. And by the way, like from a marketing standpoint, that's a pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
But isn't it also, I mean, outside of the fact that it's me, right? Which is scary on its face.
Correct. It is.
But it's also scary.
A little terrifying.
Right. Because now, you literally won't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
By the way, I did share with Danny after I saw the demo of GPT voice. Like, this is awesome. I am going to be able, this makes me being a hermit more viable than ever, because I can just have I won't even. I'll have 7 different voice.
Doug never needs to leave his house ever again.
I'll never need to come into contact with another person.
That's his takeaway. Folks.
And so why does the world need it? Because my favorite recent business quote, and one of my favorite quotes of all time, is Clayton Christensen, who referenced, in business, the old game begins before the new game ends. And so we're in this place where the new game is absolutely taking traction, but we are just the reason I think the world is so insane. Oh, actually, I was watching, I don't mean to get political, but I was watching CNN a little bit this morning, and Sarah Longwell, who's a Republican pollster, researcher, analyst, whatever, famous for doing a lot of focus groups. What she said that's really interesting is that in their focus groups, they're finding that people are wanting from their legislators results. They want things done, but they're less willing, they're less accepting of compromise.
Yeah.
So they don't want compromise. So they're less tolerant to compromise, and their demands for results are increasing. She said, and that's their theory for why there's this move to autocratic leadership, why people are going to autocrats. And the reason I think my hypothesis for why that is such an emergent trend is when you don't have context, you can't be confident. And one of the things Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach taught me was every decision that somebody makes, every purchase that someone makes, is a bet on or a statement of their confidence in their future.
Yeah.
Right. So every time you make a decision, what you're really doing is you're making a prediction of your vision of the future. Right. And so when you don't have context, you can't have confidence. And so I think people feel lost. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of frameworks. And by the way, so Jess, should we be, I'm waiting for AI-led growth. That's coming any moment. So we have inbound, outbound, account-based, product-led growth, event-led growth, partner-led growth, community-led growth. What the fuck-led growth? Right. And everyone's getting called on, are you doing it right? Yeah. Marketers are asking for attribution, even though they know the attribution doesn't really. Right? Why? Because we're all trying to justify, and everyone's talking about alignment. And no kidding, on one hand, seeing that the ideas that we created 20 years ago are still absolutely relevant today, it's also kind of scary.
Yeah.
Right. And so, what I find is that frameworks help people coming from different perspectives to align, have meaningful conversations, move forward, and grow. So that's why people need what's in this book.
Cool.
I feel like I should have We Are the World or Lean on Me queued up.
Yeah, for sure.
Lean on me.
Okay, no, we don't need to do that. So I want to talk a little bit about the what writing the book was like for you. So let's just start there. What's writing a book like, Doug?
It is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Why?
I read somewhere that James Minster used to say writing is easy. He just sits at his table, starts bleeding from his ears, and then he writes. Writing is hard.
Yeah.
Because you can only write one word at a time. No,
So
seriously.
true. No, I mean that's like so true. Yeah.
Writing is linear. So writing is two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And at best, what you're trying to write about is three-dimensional. And I think oftentimes it's more.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about a book is, I forget, I knew how many words this was. Like writing a blog, writing a 1,000-word blog can be hard because, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to stay on point. If you drift off too much, it loses everything. So to be a book, like each section has to stand on its own. Each chapter has to stand on its own, and it also has each part has to stand on its own. It's like each section has to be whole and on its own, but it has to fit into the chapter to be whole and stand alone, to be part of the section to be whole and on, like all that, and getting that all to fit. And God, reading it afterwards, I'm like, oh wait, no, this needs to be and that, and
yeah.
So it's just it's also, what's fascinating. I was listening to Robert Fritz. I read the book a long time ago. I was listening to it on audio about Path of Least Resistance, which is all about the creative process and creating, being a creator of your life. And being a creator means to create.
Yeah.
And so when we have kids, we create. Like that is creation. I don't know if you knew that or not, Jess,
Yeah.
but it is.
Yep.
I mean, some people say it's a professional type of creation or pro. This is what happens when we do Friday morning.
Yep.
So like your creation is your kid. And but by the way, what's also interesting is I've written other books, but this one was different because this one was me. This was just me.
Yeah.
And it is the concepts that I've been developing for 20 years. But like I never had, I mean, certainly when my kids are out, there's a reflection on me, et cetera. But I also always have felt like my kids are individuals. They stand on, they stand on their own. They should, but this is totally like, you are totally naked.
Yeah.
That's the only way these are your thoughts. I mean, I do like what Charles Barkley said when someone asked him about something that was in his autobiography, and he said, "I never said that." And he said, "It's on chapter so-and-so," and his response was, "I was misquoted."
Yeah.
And the author was like, "Well, it's your autobiography." Of course, it was ghostwritten for Barkley.
Sure.
And so, and I worked with a writer on this too, by the way, just for pure transparency. And so, but it's still, these are my thoughts. And so like, as it's gotten closer and closer, like there are parts of this I can't, like our emails going out, some of our marketing, I can't look at it. I can't look at it. I can't comment on it. I don't want to think about it. Like, is this enough?
Yeah.
In my own weird way, I feel like I remember reading interviews with Bruce Springsteen about why his concerts were so long, and he was just always afraid that, like, wait, was this enough? Is somebody going to be out in the audience and thinking like this wasn't enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, you know me, I want feedback on my ideas. I live on that vibe. But here it's like, again, I can't change it. It's there, it's done.
Right.
And so, like, I'm like, are people going to read it and go, I had a feeling Doug was an idiot, but it's confirmed. So yeah, it's really like, this is not a personal book, but it's very personal.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess it's practice for my when I write my autobiography.
There we go.
Long days and slow elevators.
That's the title. You've been talking about it for years.
That's a good title for an autobiography.
It's a great title. It's a great title. So you've mentioned to me this was much harder than you thought it would be. Is what you just talked about why, or is there another reason that you think?
Yeah, because writing it was hard and dealing with it was hard, but that was the easiest part of it.
Yeah.
Editing is miserable. Oh. Because you have to read it and you have to read it again and you have to read it again. And I'm not good at that, Jess. I'm especially not good at reading my stuff again. You know, you've got the curse of knowledge. I mean, it's just, yeah, and then what I did not expect is just the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
You know, I shared on LinkedIn the other day. It's like, I feel like I'm channeling my inner Sally Field. Will you like me? Will you really like me? It's like I can't, someone's going to read this, the Revenue Acceleration Framework, proven revenue, and they're going to think about it. They're going to have thoughts about it. And I'm not going to be, well, no, you're misunderstanding it. They're going to take this. Like, I saw somebody had taken their book and I'm sure with all the positive intentions, kind of did their image, 1-page key takeaways, whatever. And what they shared was wrong. And by the way, I can say it was wrong, not just because I looked at it and said, I don't think that's what the book said, but literally the author is like, no, this isn't actually right. But it's like, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
So the emotional side of that whole part of the emotional side, that's why it was so hard. Yeah.
And what did you learn writing the book?
Just how insightful I am. I knew I was insightful.
Great. Again, your humility is my favorite part of you.
I learned that I'm verbose.
You didn't know that?
I guess I did know that. Yeah. By the way, 61,000 words. The book's 61. I think actually I think we edited it down to, I think it's like 55,000 words. 55,000 words is, and at no point did I say a very, 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 very long time ago. It was really, 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 really. That's how I did my AP papers when I had.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, Doug.
You know, I learned, you know, working with the writer I worked with and the editors is like, I think I've gotten better at communicating some of these thoughts because you get beaten out. The extraneous stuff that matters to you. I think the other thing that was fascinating, I read this about writing a long time ago, is that one of the hardest things about truly writing is it's not until you can sacrifice your best piece, like your best part, so that the piece can be great.
Yeah.
So really learning where and how to give up.
Yeah.
You know, and then the other thing too is that, you know, I don't really have anything. You know, you know what the tough thing about this is? The lag.
What do you mean by the lag?
So like you're done writing, like when you're done writing, you're not halfway through.
Yeah. You've been done with this thing for a while. Like you
and
finished
so
the
I
right.
learned a lot.
Yeah.
Because the teacher's up, but I don't remember. Like, I mean, it's been in the edit preparing mode for probably about 8 months.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a hiccup that happened in between that made it a little bit longer, but
yeah. So in the beginning of the book, you tell this story about your time with your parents, about you travel,
value travel marketing, value
talk,
without an E.
Almost like a tech company.
The E stands for all the extra bullshit that you don't know.
But you talk about this offering that you guys went out with, and it wasn't really resonating, and you guys huddle up and are trying to figure out where the misalignment
What
is.
struck you most about that story, Jess?
So the thing that was interesting to me is you guys talk about, we don't have to beat them at their game. We have to figure out what our game is. And
so that was me crying in the parking lot of a McDonald's.
I mean, there was that part of it. What struck me about that in particular is that was years ago. That was years before you started what was Imagine is now Lyft. And we still talk about that today. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how important is it for you to not think about how are you going to beat them at their game, but what is your game that you're going to play? Can you, like, again, we talk about that for us. We talk about that for clients.
Yeah, it's and this kind of goes back to why do people need this book? Not a lot of people start a business going, hey, I figured out how to do something exactly like everyone else does it.
Yep.
I think I'm going to start a business. It's something that you've got a different take, you've got a different perspective. It's kind of like that old joke about raising our kids, right? We spend the first 2 years teaching them how to sit up, walk, and talk so we can spend the rest of their life telling them to sit down and shut up. So we get started because we see something different, but then we very quickly start copying what other people do. We very quickly start, like, we read the marketing books that tell us to market like everybody else. We read the sales books that tell us to sell like everybody else. And before you know it, we're defining ourselves by our competition.
Yep.
We're defining ourselves by the very thing that we disagreed with that led us to start. So I learned two things in that resonate. Number one is what people say doesn't matter much. And I would say actually what people say is probably more often than not a contra indicator. I don't even think it correlates. I think it negatively correlates. Oh my God, you should do that. When you do that, make sure you give me a call because I want to be your first customer.
Right.
Now's not a good time. Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do, and especially watch what they do when they're writing a check. If you're talking about go to market and you're getting insights or feedback from people that are not in a position to write a check, it doesn't mean much. But then the other thing is, every great company does something that they're not supposed to do. Hopefully it's legal, moral, and ethical, but they do something that they're not supposed to do, right? They play their game.
Right.
And we talk a lot about burnout today. Burnout's become this really big thing, and imposter syndrome has become this really big thing. And we talk about it almost like it's a feature, not a bug. And what I mean by that is, well, of course you have that. Of course you're burnout.
Yeah.
You need to protect yourself from burnout. Yet when people do what they love to do, when people do something that is them, they very, very rarely get burnout. I've always thought of burnout as when your obligation is greater than your commitment. So it's not that people don't like doing hard things. By the way, you show me somebody who's good. I learned this from, I'll give a shout out to Bob Curlett. I learned this from Bob. Great employees, like when you're trying to find a great employee, like you're scared to tell them about your problem because you feel like, oh my God, if they know how screwed up we are.
Right.
But if you're an operations specialist and you've got craziness in operations, you're like, yeah,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that's a playground. So when there aren't problems, when it's not hard, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just because it's hard doesn't mean that it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what happens is when we're not playing our game, when we're having to be somebody that we're not. And I think that's what, like, you know, it's what I saw in sales. It's what led me to change my entire approach to sales, which has now become very common, is like, wait a second, I don't want to be that person. And so, yeah, I think, you know, I mean, when we started Imagine in our initial process, step one was define your game. We don't call it that anymore, but that's never left. What's the game that we're playing? And you know what? If we lose playing our game, I think most people can handle that. By the way, I don't think there's a lot of losing when you play your game because there's always learning, and you can adjust when you're playing your game. It's really hard to adjust when you're not.
Well, and so it's interesting that you bring that up because I know for us where we've debriefed after client departure and you and I have looked at things and we're like, okay, well, what would we change? And especially as we started to really get locked in on we're going to play our game. Like, so I would say in the past probably 2 years, this is more prevalent than it was the previous years that I was here. We were like, oh, you know what? We wouldn't change anything because we played our game. And so that you have less regrets when you do that from whatever the outcome may be, I find. So Doug, talk to me about Rip Van Winkle.
Well, Rip Van Winkle was this guy who fell asleep for a long time.
He did. Yeah.
So I tell the story in the book about what would it, like the imaginary counterfactual story if, you know, what if Rip Van Winkle had fallen asleep in your headquarters and just woke up today? What would Rip think?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for all this conversation about change, he'd go into the accounting department and he'd be flabbergasted. What is going on? Where are the paper journals? Where are the green shades and lamps? Right? He'd go into operations and he'd see robotics and algorithms and you know, in all of the facets of his business, he would think he woke up in another world.
Yeah.
When he went to the sales and marketing department, he'd be a little bit freaked out about all the computers and this automation. What is this automation that people speak of? But everything else, he'd be like, oh, okay, wait. I get it. Right? This really hasn't changed. We're still going to market fundamentally with the same playbook we've always gone to market with. We're getting this advanced technology, and all we're doing is using that to ramp up volume and speed. And then we're wondering why things aren't getting better. And I think that's one of the real key takeaways is, and Daniel Pink, I mentioned this in the book, but Daniel Pink talks about this, that like, especially as it relates to sales. And here's the tough thing about the new playbook, right? The new playbook uses the same words. And let me, and don't get me wrong, there are aspects of the new playbook that are absolutely the same, right? You've got content, you've got distribution. You've got people and organizations that have problems that matter, that cause pain. You have a solution, right? Those things are standard and never changing. Everything else probably has pretty much changed. If we're not like, so the same vocabulary gets used, though there's often different meanings.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a difference in degree. It's not a technique. It's a difference in kind.
Yeah.
Right. One of the big things that I'll make clear, you know, the safest thing to do is nothing, or at least that's what we think.
Yeah.
Because by the way, what is the number one fear? Like, what is the fear response? Fight,
or
flight,
flight. Yeah.
or freeze.
Yeah.
Actually, it's flight, fight, freeze.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So people forget the freeze, but all fight and flight are variations of not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so you've got this, the safest thing to do is nothing, but B, if you're selling something that matters, the easy stuff's gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's no longer like people aren't coming to you for the basics, and then with what technology. And this is one thing that gets me. Every time there's a major innovation, everyone says this is the great equalizer.
Yep.
And there was a short period of time where search was a great equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much. And now
Yeah.
everyone's like, AI is the great equalizer. You're going to be able to.
Yeah.
Again, Pareto distributions, not Gaussian distributions. But also, what happens is, when we talk about small business, so much of small business,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, so much of business is based on ease and simplicity, right?
Yeah.
The path of least resistance. And so, like, my parents ran a travel agency. They paid for three children to go to college. They fed us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We took vacations, all that
Yeah.
fun stuff. What was the primary value proposition? We were within 2 miles of our clients, of where our clients live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did some people start, right? And
Yep.
then 800 numbers came in, and suddenly that changed geography. And then internet came in, and it changed geography even more.
Right.
I mean, you've seen is that middle disappears.
Yeah.
Right? Because what that middle is, that's so much of small business, and so much of what the middle is good enough.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
What's happening is technology is eating good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And good enough is all about ease and cost.
Yep.
Which connects to scale, which feeds into large, right? And so we've got to play a different game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we really need to think about, is this something that Rip Van Winkle would do?
Yep. So one thing that might be surprising both on this podcast and when folks read the book is we're going to talk about another fairy tale.
I love fairy tales. See, people think I'm only going to talk about baseball, and I do talk about
you do talk about baseball in the book, so folks won't be disappointed about that. But so how does Alice
had an illustration made, Jess?
Yep. What page is that?
It's not page 239 that has Jess's name on it. Page 16.
Page 16. Baseball illustration. All right. What does Alice in Wonderland have to do with the economic model, Doug?
It's the Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Alice asked the owl, I'm paraphrasing here, how do I get there? The owl asked, where are you going? Alice said, anywhere will do, or I don't know, or something. I said, well, if you don't know where you're going, anyway, any road will get you there. I am, in my time in business, which is 30 years now. No, not 30. Yeah, 30 years. 30 years. Oh, my God. The thing that has surprised me and saddens me is from the very beginning, we talk about it being a numbers game.
Yeah.
Now, I've never agreed that it's a numbers game. I've always felt like it's a game where numbers are very important.
Yeah.
And it's the rare organization that has any idea what their numbers are, that really understands their numbers. And I don't mean like, what was your profit and loss statement? I mean, what is driving your numbers? What are your unit economics? I spent a lot of time, and there's a part of the book I think people won't like because it involves some math, where we dig into and we talk about how do you put your economic model together? How do you understand what's happening? And so much of those issues need to be understood before we talk about strategy. I want to be strategic. Well, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't understand your unit economics, you can't be strategic, right? You can't define your game. You can't manage choice. And so Alice in Wonderland in business is we've got like vision without geo coordinates is fantasy. What are geo coordinates? Those are your economic. What's the economic model? What's the what are your unit economics? By the way, one of the things that one of the decisions that we make, if you look at our unit economics and we go, okay, well, we want to be a $20 million business in the next 3 years. I look at the unit economics and I go, the problem is the unit economics don't align.
Right.
Now, based on certain choices that we would have to make, I'm not saying so it's not that no one can do that. It's that, well, that doesn't play to our game.
Yep.
Right. And so it's about understanding those things. And by the way, the thing that I find that's important about where I think Alice in Wonderland comes into bear, I think when you have Alice in Wonderland syndrome, you are putting yourself into the sweet spot for regret and FOMO.
Yeah.
Right. Because wherever you go, you could have been somewhere else, and whatever the situation is, there's always somewhere or something else. And the thing about strategy is about trade-offs. Strategy is about choices. So you can't be somewhere else. So it helps you understand, where am I in relation to where I'm supposed to be? And it leads to much, much better, faster learning. And learning leads to velocity.
Yep. So I'm going to turn this around a little bit, and I want you to share a takeaway. So what are the top 3 takeaways that you want folks to take from the book?
Know your economics. But by the way, an element of your economics is understanding what's the timing rhythm. So make sure you're not overstudying your economics, but know your economics. It's a systems problem, not a behavior problem. Take a look at you. I mean, we are so over-focused on people.
Yep.
That we end up treating them poorly.
Yep.
And then the last thing is, it's all about learning. It's all about learning. And so what that means is you got to build feedback loops. And I think that's what the framework does. I think the framework establishes strong economics, gives you a structure and helps you understand the system so that you can match people and process, and then really feeds into how to build those feedback loops so that you can be in a continual state of learning. And if you're in a continual state of learning, I think, the game takes care of itself.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I've really enjoyed watching you go through this journey of writing the book. I've enjoyed being able to comment on pieces of it. I enjoyed the conversation today. I'm sure we're going to be digging into specific components of it. It is out today, so everybody should go pick it up. Hannah will have the link in the
99 cents
show.
on Kindle. 99 cents on Kindle. And if you get it this week, we got a big bonus package for you.
There you
go.
And
if you let us know, supposedly at some point, I promise that I'll shout you out on a RevOps show. So if we know that you bought the book, we'll shout you out.
There you go. And Hannah will have all the details in the show notes on that.
Jess?
Yes, Doug.
Just say yes to the revenue acceleration framework.
And no to shitty RevOps. Until next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. I'm going to get a little personal here because I love this book, and I think that if you've gotten to this point of the show, you should definitely go purchase it. This book has everything in it that I've been learning from Doug for the past 5 years that I've been with Lyft. Plus, even more that I hadn't learned until I read the book. The insights here are powerful and have changed my perspective on business. It is well worth a read, and as a reminder, it is out. Go get yourself a copy, and if you do read it, leave us an Amazon review so we can see what you thought. If you enjoyed this episode as well, make sure to go to subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, and share the episode. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug about the Revenue Acceleration Framework, shoot me an email at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on LinkedIn at Lift Enablement. Until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps and go get yourself a copy of the book.